Hello, Ambius, and welcome to the November safety topic. Today we have a review of the Ambius procedure to follow if there is an accident, and we also will do an introduction to OSHA first aid. All Ambius work injuries or near-miss incidences must be reported to the Ambius call center within 24 hours of occurrence. The phone number to call is 1-866-669-4146. This number is available 24 hours a day. You should call this number if you are almost involved in a vehicle accident or if you are involved in a vehicle accident. You should call this number if there is a slip, trip, or fall, whether it results in injury or not. You should call the phone number if there is a pesticide spill or if you were to splash water on a customer's computer. The phone number is there to report any accident or near-miss incident. If you are injured, this phone number can also help you talk to a nurse or get emergency medical assistance. Be sure to also call your manager if you are involved in an accident or a near-miss incident. If you arrive at any job site and you do not feel it is safe for any reason, please stop, notify your manager immediately, and wait for further instruction before proceeding. This also applies to driving to work or to a customer location. If you do not feel that the roads are safe for travel, or if there is a weather-related emergency, notify your manager immediately. Your Ambius service vehicle should be equipped with a first aid kit. It should be kept in a clean, dry space that's easily accessible. Common injuries that Ambius colleagues have experienced are small cuts and mild abrasions, exposures to chemicals like plant cleaners or pesticides, and that could be to the eyes or to the skin. Also, an eye poke or scrape from a leaf or a twig or a tool, twists or sprains, or even insect bites and stings. Your first aid kit can come in very handy in many of these circumstances. If you get a minor cut, abrasion, or insect bite, clean the area with soap and water or an alcohol wipe. Use an antiseptic cream and cover the wound with gauze or tape or a bandage. If you've been exposed to a chemical like a plant cleaner or a pesticide, the first step is rinsing off the chemical. Make sure that you know the products you are using and have the label and SDS handy to know how long to rinse it and what else to do in case of exposure. If you have an eye injury related to chemical exposure, be sure to get help. You will need to get to a sink or eye wash station and flush out the chemical from your eye. Be sure to refer to the label and SDS of the product so that you know how long to do this, and then seek medical help. If you experience a poke or scrape to your eye, it's also important to get to an eye wash station or sink so you can flush your eye. For comfort and swelling, apply a cold compress. Your eyes are very delicate, and it's important that you seek medical attention if the eye injury is serious. When a honeybee stings you, it leaves its stinger in your skin. For your own safety and comfort, it's important to remove the stinger. To do this, use a credit card or similar item to scrape across your skin and pull the stinger out. Clean the wound and then apply a Band-Aid. Be sure to watch for adverse or allergic reactions. If you experience a mild twist or sprain to your ankle, the first thing to do is to apply ice. This is important for both comfort and for swelling. An elastic bandage can also be helpful to help reduce swelling. When you wrap your ankle, start near your toes and work your way up. Don't wrap too tightly because that can affect your circulation. Rest and elevation will also help reduce swelling and reduce pain. Remember to call and report the injury, and that you will also have the opportunity to talk to a nurse and seek additional medical attention. Thank you for your attention today. Ambius does believe in safety first, and we want you to go home safe every day.
Hi everyone, it's November, and if you have not seen poinsettias yet, you will be seeing them very soon. I want to take some time this month to talk about poinsettias, this unique plant that we see between Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's very much associated with the holidays. And I also want to talk about some plant care tips. Anyone that's ever taken care of a poinsettia knows that they can wilt and droop very, very quickly. It can happen right in front of your eyes. I want to talk about some tips and some things that you can do to help prevent this type of thing from happening. The poinsettia is a close relative of the croton. Both the croton and the poinsettia are members of the Euphorbia family. And so they have quite a few similarities, and that might help you. If you know how to take care of a croton, you'll probably be pretty good at taking care of a poinsettia. If you look at the croton and you compare it side by side with the poinsettia, you'll see some similarities. The leaves are somewhat similar, and they also have very showy, vibrant colors to them that make it very attractive to have indoors. It doesn't make it the easiest plant to take care of, but they definitely have color, that's for sure. The stems are somewhat similar. The flowers are actually not that impressive on a croton. If you've ever seen them before, they're actually very small and relatively dull. And the flowers on a poinsettia, if you ever look at them, the inside of a poinsettia, you can see it here, the yellow and red part, those tiny little things on the inside, those are the actual flowers. And each flower is called a cyatheum. And they're surrounded by those red leaves, and those are called bracts. Those start to form right before those flowers develop. The poinsettia, probably the most frustrating thing about poinsettias is that they lose leaves very easily, and they can also droop and wilt very quickly. I want to talk today about why that's the case and what you can do about that. And that can be a hard thing to do when you don't see the poinsettias every day or every other day. But we're going to take a look at some tools that you can use to help get around that. One thing about poinsettias is that there's only one time of the year that you'll see them. You'll only see them between about Thanksgiving and Christmas. And of course, it is something that's used during the holiday season. The red and the green is associated with holidays like Christmas. But there's another reason that you only see them this time of the year, and it has to do with the seasons. And in fall, the days start getting shorter and shorter, and the nights get longer and longer. And there's certain plants out there that only bloom when the days get short and the nights get long. One example of a plant that does that is a Christmas cactus. You won't see the Christmas cactus blooming in the middle of summer, but you will see it blooming around the holidays. Another plant is the chrysanthemum. Whether it's a hardy mum that you see outside, you only see those blooming in fall, or a floral chrysanthemum, same thing, you will only be able to buy those certain times of the year. It's because they only bloom when the days are short and the nights are long. These type of plants are called short day plants, and poinsettias are an example of a short day plant. Let's take a quick look at how poinsettias are grown. So they're grown in greenhouses throughout all of North America, places like New York, Michigan, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and so on. And they're grown in greenhouses that in the first part of the year are growing bedding plants. So in the later part of winter and spring, these greenhouses are growing things like geraniums and marigolds and petunias, plants that you'll see people buying in the spring and summer months. But then as you get into summer, these greenhouses need to start growing something else. So what they'll grow is crops like poinsettias and chrysanthemums. And the poinsettias, when they're grown, they're started in the summertime, the later part of summer, typically in July and early August. And this is a picture of poinsettia cuttings being stuck in the soil, probably in late July or early August. And in that part of the year, the days are still longer, and the plants start growing vegetatively, meaning they grow lots of stems and leaves. Everything you see in the greenhouses with poinsettias in late summer is all green. There's no color yet. You don't actually start seeing any color with the poinsettias until about October. Then you start to see those bracts, those red bracts and pinks and all those different colors start to show up, and they really develop in the late part of October and into November. And at that point, they start selling most of those poinsettias throughout the month of November and early December. Let's talk about how to take care of poinsettias now. We'll take a look at things like light and water and fertilizer and temperatures. In terms of light, it's real simple. Poinsettias are highlight plants, just like crotons. They can actually last a really long time if you put them in a window with direct sunlight. But typically we don't have that situation, and so if you only have, lower light, they're not near a window, they'll only last just like any other bloomer. They might last 2-4 weeks, maybe a little bit longer than that, but that's about it unless they're near a window. In terms of temperatures, just an easy way to remember it, poinsettias are comfortable with temperatures that we like. So if you feel hot, it's too hot for the poinsettia. If you feel cold, it's too cold for the poinsettia. So 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 to 23 degrees Celsius. And this becomes really important, especially when you're transporting poinsettias. If they're in a vehicle that's really hot or really cold, that can easily damage those poinsettias and possibly kill them. So make sure your vehicles don't get too hot, or too cold. Next up, let's talk about watering, and this is the most difficult part with poinsettias, is making sure you keep enough moisture. If you've ever taken care of poinsettias, you know that they can turn on you very quickly. Sometimes in just a matter of an hour or so, they can start wilting and drooping, and the leaves get all dry and crunchy. It's very similar to other plants that have delicate leaves, plants like ferns and spathiphyllums. When you have plants that have really soft, delicate leaves, and in the case of poinsettias, really large, delicate leaves, they'll pull up water out of that soil, and they will pull up lots of water. It'll go out to all those leaves in the plant, and because they're so thin and delicate, they can't hold on to that water. So that water goes out of those leaves very, very quickly. And so in that regard, poinsettias use a lot of water. And now you might wonder, how much water is my poinsettia going to use? It does depend on different factors. If you have really bright light or warmer temperatures or poinsettias with lots and lots of leaves, they're going to use lots and lots of water. And in those situations, you want to make sure that you have plenty of water so that plant doesn't turn on you. On the opposite side, if you have conditions that are really dark or temperatures are cooler or you don't have as many leaves on the poinsettia plant, it's not going to use as much water as the previous poinsettia. Poinsettias do not like sitting in water. The roots are sensitive to sitting in saturated soils and water. So that's the flip side. You want to make sure it doesn't get too wet down there. And really, if you're watering them and you only get to see those poinsettias maybe every week or every other week, you have to use some type of sub-irrigation to keep up with them. There's many different types of sub-irrigation you can use with poinsettias. One example is something like the sippers, which are a really, really good tool to use with poinsettias. This was a poinsettia that was on sippers, very easy to water and did really, really well on the sippers. The only downside to the sippers is they are kind of expensive and they do raise the poinsettia up. It might raise it too high and you may not be able to work with it. But if you can use sippers, I highly recommend those for poinsettias. It's probably the best thing you can use. Aquifer discs are probably the most practical thing that you can use with poinsettias. They're very easy to install. They kind of look and they're about the size of a pancake, and you can stack them up in the saucer. And those aquifer discs are going to hold on to that water and slowly release it to that plant. So you can afford to have that extra water down there in the saucer with these things. Same thing if you want to use capillary mats. Same deal, they work the same way as an aquifer disc. And also the Oasis discs, you can use those as well, so that you can put plenty of water down in those saucers. You have that reservoir and it doesn't flood that soil with too much water. There's also a wetting agent called AquaGrow or Cymatrix. Sometimes we call it Cymatric. That is something that helps the soil hold on to water for longer periods of time. That can be really helpful as well. So definitely, I would really recommend you try those different things, see what works best for your situation, and definitely get one of those to work for you. The final thing I'll mention is fertilizer. So to make something easier for you, I'll just say don't worry about fertilizer when it comes to poinsettias. If you happen to fertilize them, that's totally fine. But if you don't worry about it. These are just blooming rotations. They're only going to be there for a couple weeks. Don't worry about that.